Hello, Tim.
Hi, Elena.
Hello. Everything fine? Are
That's
you ready for
that's great.
everything? Do you have some slides?
I have slides, so can I share my screen now? Yeah,
Yes.
I can.
Let
Yes,
me
I
show
can.
so we can check everything before to start.
I have to. Wait, I have to do the MacBook safety thing,
Right.
which is really great. Okay.
Is it your first speech?
Uh, First speech, no. Um,
Okay.
so that's great.
We have some problems.
There we go.
Do you want to record the speech?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
If
perfect.
it's okay for everyone else, I mean.
Okay, we can ask.
All
I
right.
can share you. I can see your screen. I can hear you.
Okay. Can you? Because I've got the feeling that this is it split?
It's strange because we have the big version and the little
Okay.
version.
All right,
Now
there we
we
go.
have just the one version, so now it's
All right,
okay.
great. All right.
So
Should we wait a few
everyone,
more moments or?
yeah, now the start we can start. So we can start. Everyone for everyone is everything is good. You can see the screen, the slides.
All right.
Can
Then
hear
let's.
us team without any problem.
All right. Then let's get going.
Okay, we can.
All right.
I think we can start.
All
Team,
right.
the
If
stage
Elia.
is yours. Okay, if you need,
All right. If
do you need anything?
no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, the stage is yours. Enjoy.
Okay. Thank you. Wow, this is really, it's been a while since I've had to have to speak in front of other people. So I want to thank Elena. I want to thank all of you for coming around. It's been a bit of a day for me. My car broke down and I had to spend all day trying to get it fixed. I got it fixed. So this session's been moved around from throughout the day. So I want to thank you all for staying up until right the last possible moment to enjoy this presentation. Let me tell you why I am talking about this subject. So I noticed quite a few years ago that there was this thing that happened at my job where we had a customer and we were really providing value for this particular customer. And the account rep and me, we were in a meeting. It was the end meeting. It was a renewal meeting. And we were talking about all the amazing results we achieved for him. And we were right before he came in the door, we were talking to each other and we're like, yeah, so this is just basically going to sign on the dotted line. Long story short, he didn't sign. In fact, he said, I really don't believe that you provide any value for us. So I'm gonna stop the contract here. So that took us a little bit back as to why that happened. And so it took a few more years, and I was in this meeting, this time on the other side as the client, and the agency was just prepared, just woefully underprepared, trying to convince us with slides with 10,000 bits and pieces of information on it, and it just was going nowhere. And we tried to fix it, and it just didn't work. And I swear this is true, at the very last meeting right before the pandemic hit, I went like, that's it, I need to fix this. So I've been in too many of these meetings. So I want to talk to you today about communicating results more clearly and stop stumbling at the finish line. You've done all the hard work. Now get across the finish line and get the actions that you want your customer or your stakeholder to take. So where do I think we start going wrong? It's we use these phrases like "Don't bring your opinion to a data fight." My data disagrees with your opinion. Data has a better idea. Hippo, and we use all these things to assert our rational superiority. And you may be right with all the data that you've collected, but are you more effective? So I think the story that I shared in the beginning, we were right in all the value that we created for his customer, but he didn't believe our story. And so for most of my professional life, I've been struggling with being effective and being right. And those are two very different things. And I came across this tweet like half a year ago where that really sunk in with me, because it just, in one line, it was what I needed to hear, or what I wanted to share, which is facts and evidence alone do not sway people in power, and people who seek out facts and evidence are continuously surprised by this fact. And it is the case. People in power, or people who make decisions, aren't swayed only by facts and evidence. They do have biases. They do have their past experiences, and we need to know about them. So we think of decision making as this rational process where we get presented all the evidence and we make the best possible case, and we end up with the most rational solution. And the thing is, we're not rational beings. We've never been rational beings. In fact, when we make a decision, we're usually, even the people who consider themselves rational, we usually make that decision long before all the facts and figures are presented to us, and then we just go sniffing through what we know and what we saw to justify that decision. So we continuously make suboptimal decisions. We are continuously swayed by irrational forces, and we continuously have biases that we need to fight against. So now that we know that, let's talk a little about how we can avoid that trap, or maybe not avoid, but how we can work with that knowledge, and what we can do to sway people in power, the people we needed to make a decision more towards what we want them to do. All right, so I've got, I think, 5 steps. Step 1 is preparation. If you seek to be understood, first you need to seek to understand. So that's like a very booky quote. But this is where things start to go wrong. We are given an assignment, we need something, we are given something to do, and we do not ask a question as to why we need to do it. What is the reason that this particular person asked for this information? What are they going to do with it? Why do they need it? These are things that we really need to know. We start with assumptions, and we build upon assumptions, and in the end, it turns out they need it for a whole different reason. So we need to ask why. And here are 3 questions to help you get started there. So the first question that I got from a wonderful book called The Coaching Habit is, what's the challenge here for you? You need to know what they need from you and what they intend to do with it. So if you're asked to do an analysis, you have to understand not only the problem that they presented to you, but the problem that they are working on, of which your problem is just like a small subset. This thing that might be very important for you might only be a small step in their journey. So you need to know, where does it fit in? What are the other blocks around me? All right. We need to flesh the situation out. We need to understand how they're coming into this. Okay, second question is, what would you like to see? We come in with biases. It's time we embrace the fact that we come in with biases. What is the outcome that they would really want you to investigate? I'm not saying that that's the outcome that you should investigate. That's just catering to those biases. But we need to know what the biases are. We need to know if everything goes according to your plan, what is that plan? What would you like to see? Now that we get that, now that we have that idea, we can start to see, okay, what other information is going to drop in here. And now we do a little setup. The last question for this preparation bit is probably the most important one, because we're going to ask, what circumstances would lead you to change your mind? we have to know what people might be persuaded by. And why do I say it's important? It's because of a particular bias called consistency. So if you read this book called Influence by Robert Cialdini, he talks about 6 principles of influence. One of them is consistency. So if we ask beforehand, like, okay, what information would actually change your mind? And we find that information, all of a sudden, the whole game changed. We're not working with assumptions. We know that this is information that they're going to value, and we know that this information, we can use this information to adapt to where we want to go, or where the evidence points us to go. All right. Next step, step 2, and probably the most annoying one for everyone who loves data and who loves to dashboard and who loves to create presentations. You have to limit the data you show, but you have to expand the data you use. So how do you do that? Well, let's get started. What annoyed me most about my agency, or my advertising agency, when they reported us during the 3.5-hour meetings that we had to do every single month, was they showed slide after slide after slide after slide with nothing but numbers, nothing but graphs, things going up, down, all colors of the rainbow. You have to pick just a few metrics, just a few graphs to help you support your story. We always think that the more data we are going to show, the more we'll be able to convince our audience, and it just doesn't work that way. You have to trim in the data you're going to show. What happens when you show more and more data? Well, the audience slowly but surely disconnects, loses interest, mixes conclusions and data, and it just, at a certain point, it becomes so thick with information that they're just going to disconnect, disengage, and that's it. You've lost your opportunity to influence. Okay, so how do you simplify your data? Well, it turns out that most people understand simple graphs, and most graphs have simple conventions. And as long as we stick to those things, we're going to make it very easy for people to understand and read data, easier than it would be in a table format. So these are a few things where people tend to go wrong. If you're presenting something and you're talking about time flows from left to right, not from right to left. So earliest starts on the left, and latest information starts on the right. Another convention: good is up, bad is down. Good is green, red is bad. Makes it really easy for people to understand. If the graph is going up, it's got to be good. If the graph is going down, it's got to be bad. If the number is in green, it's probably great. If the number is in red, it's got to be bad. Use colors sparsely, but highlight metrics that you really want people to see. Okay. Next part, simplify your graphs. So for example, this is a time series. For me personally, like 30 days is a lot of information for our eyes and our brains to understand. So if I could do this, for example, in weeks, or if I could group it in a few more days, it'd be a little bit easier for me to understand. So if you're in the habit of showing 365 days of data as just a simple time series, you're going to run into problems because our brains cannot read the entire series. So we're just going from dot to dot to dot, and we cannot connect. We have to simplify. We have to make sure that in just a few data points, people get the idea of what we really want to tell them. Scroll here, and again, with simplifying your graphs, limit it to, for example, just 5 data points, and then if you can, highlight what you really want people to understand, or what you want people to draw their attention to. And if you can, no, actually, you must don't not use tables. If you have to use a table, that's fine. Print it out as a handout, send it out, really important, send out all of your information beforehand so people get a chance to look at it, to process it, and to maybe ask poignant questions at the appropriate time. But don't put it on screen, because when you put that amount of information on screen, people are going to read it. If they're reading it, they're not going to be listening to you. If they're not listening to you, they're going to miss things that you think are very important. And lastly, tell me if it's good or bad and how bad or good it is. So I really like things like this kind of gauge, because you get a target, you get how much of the item we're talking about, and I'm using a color here, red, to indicate that we haven't received the target. So even if I haven't seen the number, even if I haven't seen what our target is, I can still go, like, if I have 3 by a side at the top of a dashboard, for example, I could go like red, red, red. Oh, damn, we're in trouble. Or green, green, red. Seems like we're pretty okay. All this talking makes your throat a little bit dry. Okay, so what do you show, or what data are you going to select to show people? Well, turns out you really want things that align with the core business goal. And if you're going to show something, it needs to have a clear path to action. So for example, bounce rate doesn't really go anywhere. The amount of page views, unless you're running a media site, doesn't really go anywhere. Conversion rate or average order value, that presents us with a clear path to action. If the conversion rate is low, we need to deal with that. Also, it needs to be reliable, by which I mean people need to understand it. They need to understand where you got it. They need to understand how it works. And obviously, we need to get it on a regular basis. And lastly, the graph needs to be self-explanatory. So if you have things like this, it's going to take me a while to figure out what you're meaning. Okay, a lot of information already there. Time for us to move on to step 3, reframing things as a story. It turns out, in that book behind me called Brain Rules, that we are used to understanding and learning about the world in stories. So we've done that with all our ancestors. And all of it, this data hokey pokey, is really something that we picked up in the last 150 years. So it's not part of our core being. So how can you start with that story? Well, you start by letting people experience the problem. You can create a moment, you can show a demo of the problem. So if you, for example, if you have a Hotjar on your website, excuse me, if you have a Hotjar on your website, you can show a little clip. If you're bringing in reviews, you can use a customer quote. I think Bill Gates once opened up an empty jar and said, the poorest people in the world are dying from malaria, and there's no reason why we need to keep it to the poor, and then unscrewed the jar and let out, he told anyway, all the mosquitoes that were in the jar, supposedly, which really got people's attention. Why was I talking about all that preparation? Because you need to tie that story that you're telling in with their current beliefs. You cannot change people's minds unless you meet them somewhere, or you find an entry somewhere in the story that they already tell themselves and they already believe. So if you find a way in all the preparation that you did, and you identify, okay, they want to go here, they want to do it that way, they want to do it because of this and that, and you can find a way to make your little part of a problem part of their story, people are going to be far more inclined to take action than they are if you're going to just present another complication in the story that they are telling themselves. Now, if you want to tell a story, or if you're stuck, like, how do I tell a story? Pixar's got you covered, because someone once did a Twitter thread. They were working at Pixar, and they basically told, if we want to write a story, we do it in 6 parts. Once upon a time there was, every day, one day, because of that, until finally that happened. So if we were going to do it for our sector, it would be, we noticed we were underperforming, sneakers were underperforming our average product by 68%. We'd run campaigns and people wouldn't add them to their basket. So we looked at Hotjar interaction videos. These allow us to see how users interact with our site. We noticed it wasn't obvious that they needed to select a size. That meant that people would switch between different options and not see what size they had selected. We switched the size selector to a regular drop-down, and sneakers shot up to become the 3rd best-selling product on the website. I just used that structure to tell the same story that you would have done with numbers or with conversion rates. But I inserted a few things. For example, the Hotjar films, the things, the demos. We just did a little storytelling exercise. Granted, it wasn't really the most. It will never win like the Nobel Prize, but it'll do the trick. One that I've recently heard, like 3 words: vision drives decision. If you're going to talk to people about what they need to do, you need to show them what success looks like and what they can expect. And that means good and bad. So you need to talk about the things that can go wrong, the things that maybe went wrong, how you dealt with that. If you're talking about the future, how you see the future. What are the obstacles that people might be able to experience on the way? How you're going to deal with that. You have to show them your vision, because if you're just going to go, I need Y and Z from you, it's going to cost X, and that's it. No one's really going to be inclined to go into your story. All right. So I think I lost the slide. We'll probably pick it up somewhere along the way. Okay, step 4, you have to learn from marketing. I remember I was talking about this with a couple of my Belgian analyst buddies, and one of them said, so you're basically going to do marketing on data. And I'm like, no, except yes, I was. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need to embrace the fact that there's been this industry that's built upon selling people products by implanting ideas in their heads or using their biases. We're basically doing the same thing. We're not selling products, but we are selling ideas. This isn't dirty. Using principles for marketing is going to make us more effective in selling those ideas. So I've talked about Robert Cialdini before in the presentation. There are 6 principles: authority, consistency, consensus or social proof, scarcity, reciprocity, and liking. So authority. I took a habit of, whenever I started a meeting with one of my customers and there was someone new on the team, I would always introduce him with, this is Matthew. He has 2 years of experience. This is Nasira. She's one of the biggest prospects that we have. Just to give them a little bit more of information as to that they were junior people, but they were there for a reason. Excuse me again. You can do that the same with the data that you're showing. We didn't just get this data. We got it from a particular source. For example, we got it from Amazon. We got it from Google. Things that will make your data seem more believable. Consistency. We've already talked about this. Once we have an idea in our head, we are probably not going to go against that idea. So we need to understand what their story is. We need to understand what they're doing, and we can tie that in there. Consensus or social proof. You've seen this all all across the web. If you go to Booking, Booking is a social proof engine. So make sure you don't stand alone with your ideas. Highlight where they are in use elsewhere. For example, one of our competitors is doing it, or one of the people we admire is doing it. Make sure you highlight that. Or if a couple of people around the table already agree with you, highlight that fact. There are 2 or 3 people around this table right now, Mark and Jani, and they both agree with me on this particular thing. We've got scarcity. Anything that's scarce, we are inclined as human beings to want to have. Ferraris, as an example, or maybe more relatable in our sector, things that are time limited, or things that not everyone can have. Things that are scarce are things we are more likely to want to have. Reciprocity basically means if I did something for you, you're going to be more inclined to do something for me. You're probably going to want to do this. You're probably going to want to do this with selective people. So basically, if you do a favor for someone, they're more inclined to back you up. For your socially awkward people, this is something to work on. I know I used to be one of them. And liking, again, if we like someone more, we're probably more inclined to believe them. Now, we can disagree with that fact. And we can, again, like we said in the beginning, like your opinion your opinion is less valuable than my data. But it doesn't make it less effective to work with that particular fact. So if you got the right answer and you got the solution, but you are an asshole, you probably won't get away with it. Now, thankfully, there are also a couple of useful biases that we can work with. And these are loss aversion. So if you've got something, if we can avoid a loss, we will probably always select avoiding a loss instead of gaining a gain. Reframe your data accordingly. So don't say we can probably win 50,000 a month by doing this. Say we probably lost 50,000 the last 6 months by not doing this. Same kind of information, rephrased to make people go like, damn, we have to do something about it. Confirmation bias. We're always looking for information to confirm our own ideas. Again, comes with the preparation in the beginning. Framing and anchoring. I can make something look far more expensive or far more cheap by going like, it's not going to cost, like, let's say I have a tool and it's going to cost us 10,000 euros a month to run this tool. I can say it's not going to cost us 100,000. It's just going to cost us 10. Now that might sound ridiculous, but I promise you, marketers have been doing it for the ages, and it definitely works. So the bandwagon, if everyone's doing it, it has to be really great. Recency. If you discover something new, just highlight it. Go like, this is new information. Just the fact that you said that means it triggers a bias in our brains where we are more inclined to believe that information. And zero risk bias, we probably, we all love certainty. So make sure you plan the way you present that information accordingly. Make it as certain as you could possibly be. With that in mind, there was this podcast a few months ago about the NASA administrator, technical administrator, on how you build, run, and maintain a lunar base. He said, I'm a rocket scientist, but I have no idea how to build a biodome, how to run a biodome, how to keep people alive on the moon. But I need to decide whether or not we're going to do that. And how I do that is that when people come here and they present me a simple image and a simple picture, I ask, and I ask and I ask and I ask, and usually 2 or 3 questions in, that simple picture starts to go out. So even if it go out of frame and starts to evaporate. So even though I said keep it simple, that just means in the presentation that you gave, it doesn't mean in the information that you collected. You still all need that, and you need to be able to answer all of those questions. I'm just going to quickly go a little bit quicker because I think we're running out of time. So wrapping up, make a final slide highlighting why they should care, what they should do, what the advantages and disadvantages are, and what will happen when they select the change that you're proposing. And at the end, don't put a slide that says any questions. Keep that previous slide and don't ask, are there any questions? No, ask a question. Was there anything here that surprised you? What will you take away from this information? What was most useful from this information? 3 questions that will kickstart a discussion, I guarantee it. And if you get silence, we all fail sometimes. It's completely okay. Just ask, what were you expecting differently? Or how can I change this information to make it more useful to your decisions? If you went bust still, step 6, when their decision makes no sense, respond with curiosity instead of dismay, and ask them, why would you? Why do you see that? Why do you see it that way? So respond with curiosity. Don't say that they're morons or idiots, even inside your head. Respond with curiosity. Go like, what could I have missed? What information would I have needed to present a clearer picture? So with all that in mind, let me ask you guys, what are you taking away from this presentation? I think we've got one question.
We have one question, and we have 3 minutes. And after, we don't have any more. The first question is what color? First of all, it was very interesting because I think one of our pain point for our work is to share better the value of our work, because sometimes they don't understand. It's like that we speak another language, and it's important that we are able to share the value of what we are doing. And that's a great speech. Thanks a lot. First question, what color scheme do you use given color blindness issues?
I have to tell you, I haven't. Like when I built websites, I was really into accessibility. I haven't looked at it as much as I probably should have. So I don't know. The information I gave is for like 85% of the people. So we're gonna have to find a way. It's a really interesting question, and I'm really going to look into it. I think Peter reminds me that
we are out of the time. First of all, I have to thank again Tim, and I have to remind you, all of you, to go to the main stage for the closing, for the prices, and for everything. So the event is not the end. Thanks a lot, Tim. I hope that you share the slides, and feel free to ask Tim a lot of questions. I think it's very kind, and he will answer. Thanks a lot for everything.
Thank you.
To all of you.
See you in the closing.